Welcome. Today's episode to be reviewed is The Battle. Picard runs into a disgruntled Ferengi dad. This captain's log mentions the Xindi star system. Is this the same Xindi from Enterprise or just a coincidence? Is this the only time you see another fish tank? Of course, we all know why they aren't with Livingston, since flying fish are the most invasive species and he'd probably eat them all. 300 years in the future, in a world of digital technology, they're going to go back to reading books printed on paper. Does anyone know what happened to this office? They stopped using it after the first season. Or is this the captain's quarters? Picard says he has a headache. Dr. Crusher says, that's odd. Usually it's my line to say I have a headache, but then that would be sexist, wouldn't it? Dr. Crusher orders him to sickbay and says, don't tell me you can't go because you have a headache. Tasha looks like she's about ready to fall asleep. And the first point is lost for a Stardate mismatch because this takes place after Tasha died. Damon Bach invites himself over. Is Deanna the first one to use the mute option? In reality, Deanna can't sense Ferengi, but everyone on the bridge knows they're up to no good. She just wanted to say it first for job security. Damon Bach wants to come over and talk business. Worf's like, oh hell no, they can't be coming here. Dr. Crusher injects something into Picard without his consent. -1 point. -1 point, this would be a perimeter alert and not an intruder alert. This is the first episode Wesley is in his rainbow shirt. Riker is looking for the first baseman. It was originally a Constitution-class ship, then changed into Constellation, and poorly redubbed Geordi's voice, so -1 point.
The Constellation-class starship...
Look closely, their hands are behind their backs. Now they're not. -1 point. -1 point for them being onto the bridge instead of the transporter room. Look closely, there is a boom mic overhead. -1 point. Data is third in command, not second. -1 point. -1 point for Riker getting just as excited about clothed females on the bridge. -1 point for Riker saying Data is second-hand merchandise and not a member of the crew. The correct response is for Data to bitch slap Riker across the bridge. It could be possible the Ferengi turned off the transmitter so they can't get a signal, so I can't take a point. Aww. Picard thinks the hero of Maxia is the third baseman. Picard has to be reminded that the Maxia star system was where the Stargazer was lost. -1 point. Picard apologizes for killing Bach's son, who attacked him unprovoked. Geordi says, I number 1. Deanna also feels Picard's guilt. Picard thinks Damon Bach is the third baseman. There is the Stargazer. The first point is lost for Starfleet not looking for the Stargazer after it was abandoned. The Ferengi must have found it near Maxia, so either they are near Maxia now, or it was repaired and had enough power to come here. Since neither seems to be mentioned in the episode, -1 point. It's always a red flag when the Ferengi say it's free. You know something bad is going to happen. In reality, it's impossible for these three ships to be that close together going at the exact same speed, so -1 point. Troy senses there's something different in these thought patterns. If you have severe headaches and smell smoke, that's a sign you could be suffering from a stroke, so -1 point for Dr. Crusher letting him out of sickbay. And we finally learn that the weapons officer of the Stargazer is the first baseman. Here's where you learn what the Picard maneuver is. No, this is the Riker maneuver because Jonathan Frakes had a really bad back injury. This is the Picard maneuver. Imagine how tugging your shirt can save you in such a fierce battle. And according to Riker, Picard found a version at the same time. Riker refers to the Stargazer as she. That's sexist. Over on the Stargazer, they're thinking, hey, this looks just like our battle bridge. But Tasha's like, no, this is the Enterprise Kirk was on. -1 point for a reused set. On this ship, they labeled the tactical section tactical in case anyone got lost. Dr. Crusher quotes Spock's training computer from Star Trek IV. Now we learn the bad guy has magic balls. Kazago is really upset because no money's being exchanged. LaForge says, I number 2. Riker says, I number 3. -1 point for a footlocker magically packed. You don't pack a footlocker when you're abandoning ship. Data says the records have been altered. Picard says, pooh, I've been framed. Riker says he has to report this to Starfleet, but why will it take 2 days for a response when they already got word about the tow ship? So -1 point. And Starfleet wouldn't ask for his command. They're smart enough to know that this is a whole fabrication. Look closely, a blonde girl is in the turbolift but doesn't get out, so -1 point. Riker is going to the Red Room. First Officer Kazago says Captain Bog instead of Damon, so -1 point. And 9 years in Ferengi time makes it ancient. And Kazago, Ferengis are all ears, aren't they? Picard says, who the hell is it? Dr. Crusher says, I wish to hell I knew. Is this the only time she ever says hell? Klexons is a word you hardly ever hear. Again, Dr. Crusher gives him something without asking, minus 1 more point. Picard has really bad dreams. The combination of Crusher's drugs and Damon Bach's thought sphere could really do someone in. They weren't just discrepancies, they were checksum discrepancies. Crusher's like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in bed. And now he kicks her out. She's really pissed at him now. Picard says, let the Stargazer travel by inertia. So, minus 1 point for not having a skeleton crew on board to work the controls. This isn't good. 2 doctors say, I don't know much about brain scans. Wesley saves the day. Yes! They think Wesley is the 3rd baseman. Just to let you know, Wesley, when you grow up, women are going to do the exact same thing. Nothing's going to change. Crusher and Troy take credit for Wesley's discovery. Riker said the 1st baseman said that? And they're like, no, it was the 2nd baseman. In case you didn't know, that is the helm. Damon Bach raises the shields. The Ferengi ship beams Damon Bach off the Stargazer that has its shields up, minus 1 point. It can't do that. Data says none of the main systems are crippled, so minus 1 point for not having a crew over there to fly the ship back, and minus 1 more point for asking for a tow ship that they don't need. Should Geordi really be holding the ball like that? It could be radioactive. Kazago thinks lowly of humans until he sees the ball and says, I better get back to you on that. Is this the only time Riker does a first officer to first officer request? Sadly, Picard is completely controlled by the device. In case you didn't know, that's the nav section. Riker asks Data what the defense is against the Picard maneuver. Data says, better shirts, but Starfleet is a government organization that gets everything from the lowest bidder, so I doubt if it's going to happen anytime soon. Shout out to First Officer Kazago for relieving his commander for this unprofitable venture. That will improve relations between the Ferengi and the Federation. Data says, look for trace gases like they did in Star Trek VI. After all, the thing's gotta have a tailpipe. Geordi says, make it so. Minus 1 point since there's no way the Ferengi could program the ship to answer to Picard. Minus 1 point since the Enterprise could never catch a ship at warp speed. Riker gets through to Picard. Minus 1 point for an obvious stunt double. Captain Picard's mind is cleared. The last point is lost for the Enterprise beaming Picard out of the Stargazer while it still had its shields up. And another last point for putting another tractor beam on the Stargazer instead of sending a crew over to fly it. So, who were the Ferengi? Robert Towers played Rada and has 50 screen credits including Hannah Montana, Will and Grace, and Hot in Cleveland. Douglas Warhead played Kazago and has 25 screen credits including Christine, Clueless, and Elf. And Frank Corsentino played Damon Bach. We'll see him again in a few more seasons and on Voyager. The Battle, the first episode where Wesley wears a rainbow shirt, and proof again that the Ferengi don't look very threatening, gets a score of 70%. Yes! Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.